How to get your classic car ready for winter storage. I'm going to show you how to do it in a few easy steps, so let's get to it. So I'm Troy with V-Twins to V8s, and I'm coming on to do this video for you, all you folks out there that have classic cars, and, unfortunately live like where I do in New England, where, 4 to 6 months out of the year, these cars are put away in storage because the weather just isn't conducive to a classic car. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to show you several steps that I use to protect them over the course of the storage period, the winter, and how to make it nice and easy so in the springtime it's a turnkey operation and you're ready to go cruising. So let's get to it. So first things first, as far as the inside of the car goes, take everything out of there that doesn't really need to be in there over the course of the winter. Take everything out of the trunk that doesn't belong in there in the winter time, because you don't want anything that's liquid that could freeze and burst or what have you. Attract mice, we don't want any of that. So clean the inside of the car out, and then the next thing I would do is clean and detail the car. So I would, if you wash your cars, wash it. I generally don't wash my cars. I detail them dry because I never let them get wet. But clean your car up, put a nice coat of wax on it, clean the inside, condition the leather or the vinyl, however you usually clean your cars and take care of them. Could do a whole nother video on that, which I think I will. But for right now, just clean it the way you usually do. So let's talk about a location that is acceptable to store your classic car. Obviously, some of us have heated garages and stuff like that. That's great, but most of us probably don't. We have an unheated garage. We maybe have a garage with dirt floor. We might have a storage shed of some sort, or we might bring it to a storage facility. Things that you really want to have is nice, dry storage. So you want a concrete floor, if at all possible. If you can't do a concrete floor, I would lay a tarp down and maybe some carpeting on top of that, some old carpets, some old blankets or whatever. Something that makes that floor nice and dry so when you back your car up on it, you don't have moisture permeating from the ground up into the inside of your car. Obviously, you want it to be dry, you want it to be secure, so make sure that everything's locked up, you got a good roof over it, it's not getting dripped on by who knows pipes or a leaky roof. I mean, these are just commonalities that you just got to think about. But other than that, the other thing is while the car sits, what do we do with the suspension and the tires? This is a whole nother thing. People have a lot of different ways of doing this. So let's talk about your tires and your suspension. Some people like to put their cars up on blocks. This is on a lift right now. You can do that if you have a lift. Some people stack their cars. If that's a possibility, that's a great idea. Most people don't have, a lift in every garage they own or whatever. So, you can set your car on jack stands or you can leave your car on the tires. However you do it, I would recommend that you top off all your tires. Check your air pressure in all of your tires, air them up, to the high side. So there's a max and a minimum. Generally, I put my tires at about 35 PSI for the old style radials. And then I might go as high as 40 or 45 for the 20s so that there's plenty of air in it so it keeps the tire really, really hard and round. What we're trying to avoid is a flat spot in the tires. So what else can we do to avoid flat spotting the tires other than putting it on a jack stand or putting it on a lift? What we can do is we can make the surface under the wheels softer. Ways of doing that, very inexpensive ways, is you could get some type of foam padding that you could put on your garage floor. These interlocking pads that I use all over the garage when I kneel down and different things, work under cars and stuff like that. It's very helpful. But if you have something like this, you probably want something maybe a little bit thicker than this, but if you had two of these and stacked them on top of each other, it would provide a lot of cushion and it would lessen the chance that your tires are going to flat spot. So that's one idea. The other idea the pink foam insulation that you can buy at Home Depot, the styrofoam insulation that people put in their walls. That's pretty good stuff. It's about an inch and a half thick, inch and a half thick, something like that. I'm not a builder, but I've used that in the past. Cut 4 squares of that, put that under the tires, maybe stack a couple of pieces so you got a nice thick cushiony spot, put those under the tires, and you're good to go. The other option is they make a foam piece that goes under your tire. It's like a cradle. It maintains the curvature of the tire, and it eliminates the chance for it to flat spot. They are more expensive. I will put some links down on the bottom if you want to purchase something like that. But you know, that's up to you. If you want to spend the money, great. Then you got them. They last forever. If you want to go on the cheap, then obviously my other ideas will work great. Now your tires are fully inflated, and you're on a nice soft surface, so they won't flat spot. So that takes care of your tires. So what's next? So let's talk about protecting the engine, the battery, the fuel system. Really important stuff. This is the stuff that is the functionality of your car, so you want to really pay close attention. So as far as the fuel goes, I would recommend filling your tank with a premium fuel. The reason I say filling the tank is the higher your tank is full, the less air gap there is in the tank and the less chance for condensation. Condensation is moisture. Moisture is absorbed into the fuel, into the alcohol that's in the fuel. So the less moisture you introduce, the better. The second thing I would recommend is a fuel stabilizer. So as far as a fuel stabilizer goes, I like to use Stabil. I mean, there's other fuel stabilizers out there. This just is the standard of the industry. I've used it for years and years. Matter of fact, if you look at this, you can see the crap on the top of it. I've had this container for a while, and I have a lot of cars, and you just got to put a little bit in the tank on each one. You just read the directions on the back as far as how many gallons you got, put the proper amount in. The next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure you run your car. So what I like to do is I fill my car with premium gas. Then I add some Stabil to it, and then I drive it. I take it for a little ride around the neighborhood when it's nice and warm, get all that stirred up in the fuel, and get it running up through, whether it be a carburetor or the fuel injection system, so that everything is protected. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, or I like to do and recommend it highly, is to do an oil change. So what you want to do is you want to drain out that old oil, and that gets rid of all corrosive byproducts of the combustion process. There's a lot of corrosive material that ends up in the oil during the combustion process, and you don't want that to be sitting in the pan, sitting on the engine bearings and the crankshaft, camshaft, all those moving parts for the entire winter for no particular reason other than to etch those bearings. So we drop that oil out of there, put some nice fresh oil in, run it, check it, make sure you don't have any oil leaks as you usually would, make sure it's at the proper level, and then you're good to go. And then in the springtime or during the winter time, if you start it, you've got nice fresh oil in there, you don't have to worry about anything. Now, you can't really talk about winterizing a vehicle without the most obvious thing to be tested and checked, and that is the antifreeze in the cooling system. So if there's any question of if it's good or not, you should just change it. Now, if you don't know, then all you have to do is test it. So what you need to test your antifreeze is an antifreeze hydrometer. This is an antifreeze hydrometer. I've had it for many years. It works great. You can buy inexpensive ones. They're not very expensive anyways. They're super cheap. This will tell you how good your antifreeze is as far as a protection level versus the outside temperature. So you want to make sure that your antifreeze is good for your climate. So obviously the antifreeze is key. You don't want to split a radiator, crack a block, anything like that. Hopefully nobody is running water out there, because water is not something you want to run anyway. You want to run coolant always. But test your antifreeze. If you haven't changed your antifreeze in years, or you have a car that you just got and you drove it for the summer and now you're putting it away, it's not a bad idea to just drop that antifreeze out and buy a couple of gallons of antifreeze, mix it correctly, or buy pre-mixed antifreeze and add it to the system. Then you know what you have, and not only is it protected from freezing, it's protected from corrosion, because the antifreeze doesn't go bad as far as protecting from freezing, but the anti-corrosive properties do go away. So you want to change your antifreeze on a regular basis. So keep that in mind. So the next thing we want to talk about is the battery. A lot of guys like to take the batteries out, bring them inside their home, maybe in their basement. Don't store it on the concrete floor if you do that. I like to leave my battery in the car, and then I put a battery tender on the battery to maintain the charge. That way there, if I want to start the car, move the car, if it's a nice day, I want to take a spin around the block to get all the juices flowing once again, I can do that. If I take my battery out, then it becomes a whole hassle of, putting the battery back in the car. It's like when you put your car on jack stands, you can run it, but you're probably not going to drive it because it's just too much work. Okay, so I mentioned the battery tender, and this is the one that I use. I use Battery Tender, is the actual brand name. This is Battery Tender Plus. This is a little bit higher on the food chain as far as the quality of it and the size of it. This has a built-in charger, so should your battery be slightly discharged, it will top it right up, and then once it's fully charged, the green light comes on and it maintains that charge. The reason I like using this is then I've got a whip like this, and it corresponds to a whip that I install in the car and wire it right into my battery. So in the summertime, when I'm not using a battery tender, I just store this in the garage. In the wintertime, then I pull my little whip out on the front of the grill, I plug this into it, I plug this into a extension cord, and we're good to go. So I just wanted to give you a little demonstration on my battery tender. So here is my actual little whip that I have installed in this Imperial. This is how it plugs in right here like this. And then I just plug my tender in, and voila. Right now it's going to show charge for just a couple of minutes, then it should go to green once it's fully topped off, and then it just sits there. And that's all you need. Okay, so now we worked on all the other aspects. Now it is my pet peeve is what we're working on next, and that is vermin of any kind. Mice, squirrels, chipmunks, all of these things, they wreak havoc with your car. And I can't stand them because they've gotten me a few times. Even in a car that I've driven every day, I've had them chew wires and things like that. So one of the things that I like to do is I put baits out, poisonous baits, in my garages, everywhere. They're just small blocks that I buy from their like Decon or something like that. You can buy them at Home Depot. They're like a waxy material, and I just drop them around. I don't have any kids in my garage, so I don't have to worry about any of that, beware. I lay those around, and if they get in the garage, they're going to chew on that stuff, and that's going to be the end of them. And I do find dead mice around my shop from time to time, but at least they're not eating my cars or my customers' cars. So that's one of the things that I'd like to tell you about how to keep vermin out of your car. The other thing is to close off the important areas, such as the intake, like the air cleaner. Now this particular car has got a snorkel type air cleaner, so what I like to do is just put a little bit of tin foil over the end of the air cleaner with a rubber band, and that keeps them out. They hate tin foil because they don't like to chew on it. I'll show you. So what I recommend is Reynolds Wrap, trusted since 1947. A lot longer than I've been around, but safe to say it's well trusted. I fold it appropriately, and then over the end of my air cleaner as such, just like that, with a little rubber band. As you can see, nothing's going to get in there. If they come over here, they're not going to chew on this, they're not going to pry it off. Now you don't have anything going inside. So if you don't have a snorkel style air cleaner like this car has, and you have like a more of a performance type air cleaner with a open element, just take that air cleaner off, put your tin foil over the top of the carburetor opening or the throttle body opening, and then just drop your air cleaner back down on top of it. That way there, it keeps anything out from inside. So now that we've got the intake side done, now what we want to do is we want to deal with the exhaust. So now we're back around the back of the car, and this particular car has dual exhaust, so obviously we want to cover both of these tailpipes. Now I have two methods of doing this, okay? We have the super easy method and the other super easy method, okay? First we go back to our old friend, Reynolds Wrap, trusted since 1947. And what we do, make our little thing, we put it over the tailpipe, and we take our rubber band, and we wrap it around here a couple of times, and what we end up with is this super secure, secret squirrel couldn't even get in here type tailpipe protection like that. There's the other super easy way to keep mice out of your tailpipe, and that is to use steel wool. Steel wool is great because mice also do not like to chew on it. The other thing that's great about it is all you got to do is stuff it in the tailpipe like this, and no mice. And should you forget that you put this in the tailpipe when you start the car, boom, it blows the steel wool right out of the exhaust, and you're good to go. So I got a funny story about the steel wool in the exhaust, and basically it comes from some old timers told me what they used to do when they were kids was they would take the mufflers off of their cars and run straight pipes, and then on the end of the tailpipe they would drill a hole so they could put a nail through it. Then they would take the steel wool, stuff it in the tailpipe, and put the nail through to hold it. So what this did with the correct amount of steel wool in here is it created a muffler effect. So your exhaust was relatively quiet. You could go to the inspection station, your exhaust wasn't loud, and then when you leave the inspection station or you leave your house, you know, your dad doesn't know, and you drive around the corner, you pull the nail out, hit the gas, it would blow the steel wool out, and boom, you're running straight pipes. So now you're downtown terrorizing everybody with your noisy exhaust, and then all you have to do is put your steel wool back in with your nail and drive down the road like nobody's business. So that's an old school hot rod story for you. So now we're almost all set. The final icing on the cake, so to speak, is going to be to cover the car up. So basically, to sum things up, we've got our tires the way we want them. They're inflated, they're supported. We've cleaned out the inside of the car. We've covered the intake. We covered the exhaust. We know we have the right antifreeze in, and it is protection down to the right temperature. Our battery is protected with a tender, or it's been removed. So we're in great shape. The car's ready for storage. The last thing that I do to it is put a cover on it. And I like to use, you can use any kind of cover you want. You can use sheets or blankets if you want to. I like a breathable cover, and I like the covers made by Covercraft, or covers that are made out of the Technolon material. It's a quilted padded material. It's nice and soft flannel on the inside, and it's kind of like this canvasy sort of material on the outside, almost like Tyvek, and it allows the surface to breathe, and should anything get on it, liquid, you know, let a leak in the roof, God forbid, or something like that, it protects the paint from that, keeps all the dust off the car. It's just that extra layer of protection. So now that your car is all prepped, it's all covered, it's stored, then what? Well, I would always recommend to check on your car at least, you know, once a month, depending upon how long it's going to be in storage. Most of the time it's a 4 to 6 month kind of thing. I would recommend at least checking on it once a month, make sure everything's okay, make sure nothing's gotten into it or what have you. The other thing I like to do is I like to run my cars. Some people say, no, don't run it at all, let it sit. I like to run my cars. So I like to start them at least every 30 days, and if it's really nice out, I might drive it out into the driveway, I might drive it around the block, just to get the transmission lubricated and the rear axle and the seals and everything, but that's going to be kind of your call. I've seen where guys don't even touch them and they're fine, but I like to keep things moving. I like to use the brakes, all of that stuff. So other than that, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you're good to go. So I'd like to thank you for tuning into my video. If you got some value out of it, please give me a like. If you like this type of content, I have a lot of it that's automotive related, how to maintain your car, how to repair your car. Subscribing to me would be great. I'm just here to help you. So, if you need some help, message me down below in the comments. I'll respond to you. I kind of give, if you look through any of my videos, I respond to people that give me a comment on it, whether it be good or bad. I mean, if you don't like it, you do something different, whatever, bounce it off me. We're all in this community kind of together. If you have a better idea, I'm open. But I've been doing this a long time, and I think I'm pretty confident in my techniques. So I'm Troy Kane from V Twins to V8s. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck on your project.